So there are many different types of learning. One of the most common is associative learning. We'll talk about that in a minute. Non-associative learning falls into a bunch of different categories, from cognitive maps to modeling. So there are many ways in which we learn. What we learn in psychology is classic, right? We learn classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Let's go over those real briefly. Associative learning, because we're going to use these to discuss more of the cellular aspects of learning and memory in the few coming slides. So classical condition, the Ivan Pavlov sort of stuff, is where behavior is associated with a paired stimulus, and that stimulus is neutral initially. So you have what's called an unconditioned stimulus that yields an unconditioned response. So you don't have to condition a dog to salivate when they see food. Conditioned means learned here, right? So if you just put food near a dog, they will salivate. So the unconditioned response, the unconditioned stimulus is food, the unconditioned response is salivation. It's a natural phenomenon. But if we take a neutral stimulus like a bell or some sound and we pair it with the unconditioned stimulus, so just before we give the food, we ring the bell. Okay? So the food was creating the response, salivation, all by itself. But now we're pairing bell with food repeatedly, and you're still getting salivation. But the learning is that now when you remove the food and just have the bell, okay, this neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. So now the conditioned stimulus will yield all by itself the conditioned response, salivation. So the UCR becomes the CR, but they're actually the same thing, salivation. And the bell, the neutral stimulus, and the conditioned stimulus are the same thing. It's still the bell. But now the bell alone creates the salivation. Bell, salivation. Okay? So that's one type of associative learning. The other is operant conditioning, put forward by several great people, Thorndike, B.F. Skinner. So behavior is associated with rewards. And here you want to think about what's going on and what used to go on at SeaWorld, right? So if the dolphin can jump through the hoop, they get a fish, right? So behavior is rewarded. So you either give them reinforcement, which is a reward, or you give them punishment. And we don't need to go into these any more detail here. You learn these in Intro to Psychology, but these are going to set up some of the training for cellular concepts associated with learning that we're going to get to next.